Bonjour, bonsoir, dear friends, and welcome to JCB Live. We're going to be more than live today. It's going to be very exciting with a fabulous man, a man with a vision, a man with an amazing, incredible life. First, brilliant, from education, from the famous school in Washington, D.C., all the way to Stanford Graduate School. Raised with the best, McKinsey, lived in the United States, Asia, all over the world, consulted for the best. And then as a great tennis player, yes! He joined the famous Agassi group, one of the best tennis players of all time, the greatest style, moved to Vegas and ran the charter school program. So very exciting to learn about this. And then, related to the Martinelli family, he decided now to be the president and the CEO of this incredible, iconic, and fabulous history anchored in the heart of Northern California. So, dear friends, he's here in person. I'm delighted to welcome Gun Reuter. Woo!
Cheers. Thank you very much, Jean-Charles.
Well, Gun, what a pleasure.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Well, me too.
Cheers.
And look at what we're toasting with, dear friends. We're making an exception. It's not JCB bubbles today. It is
Martinelli's 100% apple cider, sparkling apple cider.
And, it's not because it's a special day. It's a special day because it's a non-alcoholic cider.
It is. One of the oldest in the United States.
Wow.
150-year-old history.
I need to tell you again, the aroma. Oh, I have a feeling I'm chewing into an apple.
You can smell the fresh apples.
Oh. Maybe we should start right there. What's the history? And then we're going to go backwards in history. We're going to start with the recent and the old and then go to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Martinelli's was founded in 1868 by Stephen Martinelli. His brother Louis came to the United States chasing the gold rush.
From Italy?
From Switzerland, actually. So, Swiss Italian. Came to the United States. Lucky for the company, he wasn't very good at panning for gold, so he went to Watsonville. At that time, Watsonville became one of the homes of apples in the United States. Mm-hmm. It became the apple capital of the United States. He ended up farming apples as well as other crops, and his younger brother, who had been working in France, learning how to make champagne, came to the United States.
See, the French have something to do with
the French are connected with all good things about food and drink. So he came to the United States, and his brother had all of these apples, and he knew how to make a sparkling champagne. So he decided to take those apples and make a sparkling hard cider.
Wow.
So the company was founded in 1868 as a hard cider company.
Unbelievable. And you know what it makes me think of? The famous Thomas Jefferson, who said, we will be a country when all our states will be raising and harvesting apples. For cider, for hard cider, for Calvados, for apple pies, for whatever it is.
Well, in those days, that was the legend of Johnny Appleseed was born in that era. He brought apples across the United States because at that time, you couldn't drink the water in the rivers. There was no way to ferment, to pasteurize or to make a pure drink out of the water. So they made hard cider. It was had a little nice buzz to it, but actually was a part of what they would drink as they came across the United States, planting apples as they went.
Very cool.
And then we took that and all of these apples in Watsonville, California, and we made, at that time, a hard cider that ended up winning 50 gold medals in terms of across the United States internationally as the best hard cider of its day.
What an era, the 1850s and 60s in California.
It's amazing what was going on and how many people came from all over the world to seek their fortune.
Who would you have liked to be at that time? If you had the choice. And I know, for us, dear friends, I know you all around the world, we have Crocker, we have Mark Hopkins, we have Stanford, we have Huntington, we have all the big entrepreneurs. And believe it or not, Gun, I don't know if you know this slight detail of history. In 1867, they all invested in Buena Vista Winery.
I did not know
that we own today. And all those phenomenal entrepreneurs created the first ever in Northern America stock company, which was not listed on any exchange, but was really a group of shareholders owning it and building it. So.
Right. Well, that combination, that entrepreneur, that pioneer spirit was so strong. And if I would pick one, I'm somewhat biased, but it might be Leland Stanford.
I knew! Stanford graduate, of course.
Combined great business success, but also then reinvesting in education. And to me, that's what, for my career, trying to combine both business and the passion around work with the contribution to the community and around education. So that, to me, he did it to a level few can attain, but that's inspiration.
An amazing inspiration, and I'm sure you've seen in Vina, California, there's his original ranch. Dear friends, Mr. Stanford and his wife built the largest vineyard at that time in that part of California. And yeah, me neither. And I got the opportunity to tour it, and there's still a little bit left. I think 56 acres out of thousands of acres at the time. And they had the vision to do that in Vina, California.
Incredible.
And close to Sacramento.
Right. You mentioned Buena Vista, so that is the oldest winery in...
Yep.
I did not know that. That's
same time, really.
Yeah.
I mean, 1857, 1868, this is amazing.
Right.
So how would you describe this amazing, incredible sparkling? Because, dear friends, when you talk about cider, why I was so excited for Gan to be with us is the true amazing history in America of apples and in France. We as kids drink that all day in France. Right?
The non-alcoholic.
And well, sometimes we cheat. But my daughters are in love with your drinks.
Absolutely. Well, for us, of course, it starts with the apples. When the company was founded, that part of the United States, now we call them heirloom apples, but there was a huge diversity of different types of apples that were grown in Watsonville. So we had the benefit of being able to select some of the best apples that made the best juice. Unfortunately for those apples across the United States, they didn't make great apples to pack once the fresh apple market became commercialized. So they disappeared in the United States, but because we use them for our process, they remain in Watsonville. And the most important apple for us is called the Newtown Pippin. It's not grown in any commercial volumes anywhere else.
That's right.
We have about 2,000 acres total of apples in the Watsonville area, greater Pajaro Valley. But that apple has been the backbone of our flavor in the company since its founding. And we were able to incentivize our growers by paying them a somewhat over market price to keep those apples there and not transition to a Granny Smith or to a Fuji or to Galas, which are much more popular as an apple that you find in the grocery store, but they're not that flavorful from a juicing standpoint.
And how is I know you have a family house in the Russian River.
That's right.
How is the Gravenstein apple that is so well known up here?
The Gravenstein is a wonderful apple. In fact, we made, I wasn't there at the time, about 15 years ago, we made a Gravenstein cider. It was fantastic. Unfortunately, the dynamics of agriculture in this area were impacted by some of the success of you and your other winemaking friends. So there are unfortunately not as many Gravensteins left cultivated in this area. But we still take there are probably 1,000 acres of, maybe not 1,000, 500 acres or so of apples grown in this area.
Yeah.
And we buy a lot of our apples from the Sonoma area.
And could we say there is the same concept in apple growing as it is in wine with the terroir, the sense of place?
Absolutely. So for us, for the Pajaro Valley is our Napa Valley.
Okay.
It's an area where you combine an alluvial plain with fantastic soil, but a very cool coastal climate. Very different dynamic than the apple growing region in Washington, which has great varieties, but there's a very different characteristic that's imparted on apples grown in our area. So if you ate a Fuji apple that's grown in Watsonville versus one in the Northwest, it has a much more vibrant taste in coming out of the Pajaro Valley, a much more dynamic mix of sweet and tart. So it pops more, and it's certainly the aroma, which we get a lot, which is so important, as you know from wine, of how you experience and drink, is the aroma is so important. And the apples grown in the Pajaro Valley have just a unique, very strong apple aroma.
And that's around Watsonville?
That's all around Watsonville. It's in southern Santa Cruz County, northern Monterey County, and then the San Benito.
So are you a surfer?
I am not a surfer.
Because that's a pretty cool place for surfing.
Yeah, there are a lot of people that come there to surf and, of course, drink apple juice.
So tell us about the story of Adam and Eve and the apple. mystique, because we all have big questions about this.
Well, the story of Adam and Eve, I think we're all pretty familiar with, but I think
The forbidden
the
apple.
forbidden fruit. But I think it speaks of the fact that apples are part of history because they can grow everywhere.
That's
They
right.
pack very well, and they're very easy to transport. They're very easy to pack, whether it was 2 centuries ago or current day. So everywhere you go in the world, there are apples. And you can't say that about most fruits. They're usually more regional and more sensitive to the climate. But apples are robust, and they've been an important part of lore for many, many years, and they're an important part of our diet and how we drink and enjoy.
So culturally, explain our friends, we don't have to go into full depth, but how do we make a non-alcoholic apple cider?
Sure. Well, what's interesting, we have been mimicking the winemaking process and learning from winemaking process from the very establishment of the company. Certainly on the non-alcoholic side, we looked, and I say we, it's generations before me, John Martinelli and his father Stephen, met with many winemakers about how they processed grapes and got the juice out of the grape, maintain the purity, the quality, the flavor of that grape throughout the process. So the first thing we do, of course, is to make sure we have the best apples. So we source the best apples from our backyard as well as from the Northwest, the varieties that we really need for our blend. Similar to wines, it's also about how do you blend the different varieties together. Single strength apple, and even the Newtown Pippin, our favorite juice, our favorite apple, single strength is not as dynamic and robust as a blend of apples that we know what works well together. So in any given bottle of juice, there could be as many as 20 different varieties.
Oh, really?
Exactly. So what we do, we get our apples, we put them in our apple yard, and we have a recipe for the day. Usually it's for a week, and then we change it for the next week. Because every season, every orchard, every variety is a little bit different, depending on the climate, depending on what has impacted that fruit. So we have our winemakers, our apple juice makers, that understand all of those dynamics and are tasting the apples, tasting the juice to make sure we blend the varieties together in the right way. So one of my favorite views, I don't know if you saw it on our website, is we do a drone shot over our apple yard. And you see every color of apple in the apple yard.
This is on the Martinelli website.
On the Martinelli website. And you see how important the diversity is, because you'll never have that shot with one apple. We need that diversity of apples to make a real robust.
The art of blending, very similar to wine.
Very similar, very similar. Then we wash, of course, all of our apples, and then we use plate pressing technology that's, again, similar to what's used in the grape industry, that we had actually developed for our company by another.
Is it this way?
It is. It's a vertical plate press.
Vertical,
And then we've actually just invested. Another thing we actually learned from the Gallo companies, we have a quite close association on the supply side.
Yeah.
They introduced us to new filtration technology out of Italy. They're called DeLoach filters.
Yeah.
And it's a different filtration than what we had used, membrane coke filtration. And what these new filtration mechanisms allow, from apple to bottle, now takes 2 to 3 hours. When we used to use the old coke membranes and also the different shank filtration, we'd have to settle the tanks before we filtered. These, it's more of a continuous flow.
And you manage. You avoid oxidation.
Exactly. Well, and it's so important for a non-alcoholic. We don't want that yeast to ferment.
That's right.
Very different from a process to make wine or Heart Cider. So we need to make sure there's zero oxidation, and we get from the apple to the bottle as quickly as possible. So we used, in the old days when we settled the tanks, it could be 12 to 16 hours before we got that apple in a bottle. Now we're down to 3 or 4 hours, which is a tremendously important process.
More freshness.
More freshness. You've got that. You want to get it from the apple to the bottle as quickly as possible.
So I'm sure many of you are wondering, how do we get that lovely bubble?
The bubble we do carbonate. This we have to add CO2. We have to carbonate. So what we do is we filter and then we chill the juice down to about high 30s, low 40 degrees, and then we bind the CO2. So our pasteurization step, because it is a fresh product, we don't put anything in this other than apples. So no preservatives, no chemical additives to preserve or to kill any agents that might be in. So we have to post-bottle pasteurize.
Yeah.
So that's a very complicated process, because you've got a carbonated product capped like you saw, going through a pasteurizer up to 160 degrees.
For sure.
So that will make sure that, yes, it's a fresh product, but with no additives, but we have to make sure we pasteurize the product so it can stay on the shelf for up to 2 to 3 years.
We love it. And, we have a winery that was founded in 1640 in the Jura. And when Pasteur invented pasteurization, he was actually living in the Jura. And he had a vineyards of 2 hectares, roughly 6 acres. And he was playing with pasteurization. And this is where he actually played with the grapes to invent pasteurization that you're using today.
Unbelievable.
So you see, we related in a way.
Cheers, we're connected yet again. Well, pasteurization saved the company. Up until 1919, we were a hard cider, apple brandy, apple wine company.
Very cool.
In California, the local municipalities started going non-alcoholic, forbidding alcohol before the national 1919 prohibition. So the second generation Martinelli at the time was going to Berkeley, not Stanford, but still a pretty good local school. He was going to Berkeley, and he worked with one of his professors to apply pasteurization to apple juice. So that we could develop a non-alcoholic version of what then was we were a 100% alcohol company. So through Prohibition, we survived because we applied pasteurization to the apple.
Wow.
Before that, we didn't need to because
Brilliant move.
It was.
Well, one of your brilliant moves, in fact, is to capitalize on the founding dates, 1868, and bring back.
That's right.
So tell us a little bit about this, because it's going to be for another surprise, not for today, the 1868 Heart Cider.
Yeah. So, of course, the company was founded on hard cider. After Prohibition, we did both hard cider and we did the non-alcoholic.
Yes.
By the 1970s, though, the hard cider business had really tailed off. It was, and our non-alcoholic product grew tremendously. So in the mid-70s, it was only 1% of our business, but the footprint for the tanks that we needed to use to produce the product took up a tremendous footprint in our production facility. So we had to make a tough decision in the mid-70s to exit the business.
Wow.
So as we were thinking about when I joined the company in 2013, it was right at the start of the boom of the current hard cider kind of revolution. And I worked with John Martinelli to try to convince him that let's bring the old and make it new again.
That's right.
And we turned 150 years old in 2018. So we worked on developing a hard cider to commemorate and memorialize the history of the company.
Cool.
Yeah, it was, and we work with a lot of hard cider manufacturers, some beer companies that thought we could help us, but ultimately we found a solution in our backyard. So Gordon Biersch, who you may be familiar with,
of course,
Dan Gordon, who has been a friend of John Martinelli for years.
And a great brewer.
Fantastic.
Some of you don't know, one of the best, artisan microbreweries over 30 years ago now.
Right. And I would say there are a few people that know hard cider better than he does. So we sat down with him and we said, we want to resurrect the recipe of great-grandfather and make the best hard cider on the marketplace. So he worked with us, worked with our varieties that we wanted to include that are unique to our non-alcoholic product, and apply that same vibrant flavor to our alcoholic hard cider.
Cannot wait to taste it.
It's fantastic.
And you're rolling it out right now, right?
So we introduced it as part of our 2018 as sort of a festive kind of a one-off shot, but it was so popular that we partnered with Dan and his distribution to roll it out now. It's been difficult with the pandemic. We haven't been able to have all the meetings to introduce the product, but it's been we're very, very excited by it. And the 3 different varieties of non-alcoholic that I brought. So for hard cider, we started with a classic version of our classic sparkling cider.
Yeah.
We intend now to develop a blush version. This is our blush non-alcoholic cider, which we introduced last year to make a hard cider version of this place. It's fantastic. There's a hint of raspberry in it. It's a wonderful blend. And then we have an apple Marionberry, which is not as broadly known in most of our fans, but is probably my favorite product we make a hard cider out of that as well. So what we're trying to do is to take the great flavors that we've discovered in our non-alcoholic and apply those and transition those to a hard cider product so that you can enjoy whether you want a refreshing treat in the day or have a fun drink at night.
And this is success for sure, because with such a history, this is amazing. And your children can have this, and you can have the hard cider.
Exactly.
Now, how is it to work in a family business?
It's a
Big questions, dear friends. On this one, I'm going to have another.
Yeah, you can tell me. It's interesting. It's been an absolute joy. This idea of blending the old and the new and respecting the heritage while moving forward with a business is, I think, a challenge for any company, but it's a unique opportunity and a unique challenge for a family business.
Yeah.
Because in a family business, there's so much pride and personal connection with what has come before, which is part of it. It's an asset, but it can also be a challenge to move beyond. So I will say, introducing the hard cider was a very interesting struggle, because the family at the last 30 years, we were refreshingly non-alcoholic, non-alcoholic. Right. And that was in the minds of the family at that point. So there was a great passion around our products focused on the non-alcoholic drinkers and children versus what had been a hard cider. So it takes a little time to communicate.
He's very diplomatic.
So no, it's
hey, brother and sister.
That's right, exactly. So it took a little time in convincing, and it took really developing a product that could stand up to the name. It's a fantastic product, and it really convinced the family that there was real value there. But for me, as the first non-family CEO of the business, I am very respectful of what has come before me, and understand that it is a legacy to treasure and to protect, but also a legacy to build from, and to try different things, and to be a little creative with how we can grow the business for the next 4 generations of Martinelli's.
Very important. And I'm sure Gunn has a lot of surprise up his sleeves. It could be Calvados, it could be branding. It will be distilled apple-based products, I'm sure.
That's our primary focus. Really, it's about fruit products, that we know how to source fruit, we know how to manage fruit to retain the unique flavors while creating a drink, or be it alcoholic or non-alcoholic.
So now we're going to go to wine for a second, because we love apples, but apples need grapes as well to express themselves. And this is, dear friends, how I had the pleasure to meet Gunn for the first time many, many years ago. And first I want to commend Gunn for his incredible achievement with Martinelli, with a tennis racket, because he's an incredible player.
I have to deny that, because there are people on this that may actually know my level. I'm not incredible, for sure.
Well, if you're not, you've been trained with an incredible one.
I know some incredible players.
So now we're going to go to another chapter of Gunn's incredible career, is the one he had with one of the best and most well-known tennis couple in the world, Mr. Agassi and Mrs. Steffi Graf.
Absolutely.
So, Gunn, tell us about what motivated you to do this, because this is how we met, and what you were doing with this amazing vision, and what you've built for others as well.
Yeah. Well, I'll get to and answer your question, but for me, again, it's the combination for business is working with people you love and respect. And I met Andre when I was 17 years old. And I just immediately, we formed a tight connection. I really respected how he approached, of course, the game, but just who he was as a broader person, and what he represented in terms of his care about the community and about education and about his career. So we became friends. And I always kept in touch with him when I was living in Japan, or whether I was consulting for McKinsey or working in banking. We just always remained close friends. He actually decided that he and his wife wanted to set up a company to manage their assets and to invest their assets alongside their brands. So there was an opportunity, and he came to me and he said, "Gunn, would you be interested in helping us build this business?" McKinsey
trained, so a lot of brain in there, and bankers.
There
so
used to be a lot of hair too, but not so much anymore.
Yeah, but the brain sucks it in.
That's right. So he called me up and asked me to join his business. And for me, it was an opportunity to do something different, to take a chance, to take a little bit of a risk.
For sure.
And to be involved in more entrepreneurial ventures.
So you moved to Vegas?
So I moved to Vegas.
From
at that time, I was in Philadelphia. So I'd been in New York City, then in Philadelphia, and then moved to Las Vegas.
See, dear friends, you've got to take risk in life to go for your goals and objectives.
Absolutely.
And what did you think? You said, why not? Let's do it.
I said, why not? My career had been built more with large companies and consulting for large companies. This was an opportunity to work with somebody I cared about and to build businesses more from the ground up and invest in businesses from the ground up. And that was a unique challenge. I was born and raised in Silicon Valley, so that entrepreneurial gene was in me, and and that was an opportunity to exercise it a bit.
Very cool. So how did that work, and how does that look like? At least what you could share, of course.
Sure. So really what we had, there were two separate parts of what Andre did and Steph. They built a business around their brands. So there were traditional licensing agreements, as any athlete would have, but they wanted to get access to deals and access to opportunities with their capital, because they both had a fair bit of capital to invest, as well as some of their friends. So they created a small basically venture fund that they could put into projects where their brands also benefited those projects. So they weren't just pure investors. They could also take a part in the business to represent the value in the business.
Yes.
So it was in a way getting a little bit more bang for your buck for your license, rather than just getting a fee to use somebody's name or likeness.
Yeah.
They said, we want to put our money at risk. We want to take a little bit more active role so we can get more of the upside. So that was the concept.
And I'm not surprised, because knowing Andre Agassi's game, which is pretty aggressive.
He's pretty aggressive.
And that's what I love. You could see his game probably applied to his investments.
That's right. There was no slowing down in him. So it was always pedal to the metal to try to figure out creative ways to solve the problem. And it was an incredible opportunity. And that led to the second half of both Steph and Andre's passion is around education. Andre in 1997 started a charter school in Las Vegas, when charter schools were very, very new in the United States, because what he saw, especially in Las Vegas, and many people see the glitz of the street, but there are areas of Las Vegas that are suffering. And he decided that he wanted to use his resources to bring public education and high quality public education to a part of the city that was in desperate need. So when always with the business, we would volunteer our time, energy, and resources to help that charter school.
That's fantastic.
And as we looked at the opportunities around 2010, we got connected with a group out of Los Angeles, a large private equity fund. We decided, wouldn't it be incredible if we could raise a fund from socially minded investors to go and identify the best charter schools in the United States and build them campuses for their schools. Because the hardest thing is for a new school is to be able to have money to build a beautiful facility.
That's right.
So what we did is raise, and Andre and the group out of LA was led by Bobby Turner. We went out and raised a fund, about $250 million, to build charter schools.
That's amazing.
And we would lease to these schools, so that a school that was doing great work for 100 kids, maybe 500 kids in Dallas, we built campuses, and now they could educate 2,000, 3,000 kids.
What a great achievement.
Basically trying to accelerate the development of real high quality education for inner city communities at risk.
And did you see a major difference within the charter school concept?
Well, I think we were able to catalyze a great movement.
Yeah.
And what we were able to do, and specifically in areas like Dallas, San Antonio, Las Vegas, and some other areas around the United States, was to dramatically increase access to education and the graduation rates of these charter schools in communities where the local high school's graduation rate might be 40%, 30%. We were introducing and expanding educational opportunities that were graduating kids at 80 to 90% into four-year colleges to give them the same opportunities that kids from different communities could.
That's right.
So it was an exciting opportunity to expand what had been one school to try to help other charter schools around the country get a higher level of growth and have more impact with our resources behind them.
That's amazing. And so how many do you actually open around the country?
So the fund is actually on their second fund now. So I don't actually know the number, but I believe it's 150 schools across the country. Maybe actually more than that. Yeah.
And what was your biggest satisfaction throughout the process?
You know, for me, it was that, again, like Leland Stanford, that combination of applying business acumen, business knowledge, to solve a problem in education, and to bring like-minded business people and investment into education. Not necessarily trying to reinvent how to educate kids, but to find a way to get more resources to these schools.
That's what it
and
is.
to build facilities in a way that they could do more good work.
And do you think that's the solution of the future?
I think it's part of the solution of the future.
Because you have kids yourself.
I do.
Well, one of your daughters is a champion of cello. So you've succeeded there.
My wife has succeeded there. I have no talent in music. I appreciate it. I can't carry a tune, but my wife was a concert pianist, so she's been the one that really has been the inspiration for our kids. But I love to see it. Yeah, no, I do think that charter schools and different creative, more entrepreneurial ways to bring public education, increase the quality of public education is critical.
Yeah.
Right now there's such a gap in education in the United States, and private schools are fantastic for those that can afford it, but most people in the United States can't. Yeah. So part of the solution is figuring out a way to bring quality charter school education to more communities and public education to more communities around the country. And that will help the public schools, other public schools, see models and to be inspired by what the charter schools can do, because the charter schools are not the solution, but they're part of the solution.
What else would you recommend as a solution to education today?
Well,
and I know it's a huge topic.
Big topic, and it's going to sound trite, but I think the solution is parents being involved in their education of their kids, and that starts from there. Again, that's hard when you have both parents working, or you have single parent homes, which certainly is quite prevalent in the United States. I do believe that we need to have more funding focused on education. We need more resources going towards education. I think as the United States underfunds public education, in my opinion, and it's an area where that return on that dollar of investment in a young person's education is tenfold, 1,000-fold onto the cost of that over the long term, in terms of those kids that now can graduate high school, graduate college, the contribution that they make back into society, the taxes they pay as a higher earning a person in the community is tremendous. But unfortunately, I think we're somewhat short-sighted in the United States in how we look at funding public education.
And how, after these 7-8 months of challenges we've all lived, how do you see remote learning and what has had to happen for a lot of families? Do you think it could be part of a permanent solution?
I think it could be part of a permanent solution. And I'm not an education expert. I don't want to pretend to be, but what I've seen and heard from some of the schools that I serve on the board of, it has helped teachers understand how to get to kids that maybe for whatever reason can't come into the school. Obviously now nobody can come into the school, so they've had to figure out on the fly how to deliver education virtually. It's difficult, it's not ideal, but it may be a way to offer some of the more creative education models to communities that aren't necessarily then tethered to having a school, or maybe there's a great program in Houston for a certain demographic of kids.
That's right.
Well, then somebody in Chicago may be able to virtually access that style of education, or that teacher, or that module, without having to be physically present. So I think there are opportunities there to apply the learnings that we've had to go through right now in education and in business, by the way, to increase access and to not necessarily be tethered to the immediate neighborhood that you happen to be born in.
That's right.
But access different resources from other parts of the country or the world.
You see lots of solutions, even in time of crisis, dear friends, there's solution.
Absolutely.
So as we met around a wine bottle and a wine glass at DeLoach Vineyards, we selected, of course, today for you a wine. Gun, you got to describe. You're the experts of flavors and senses. So to your historical tie to Sonoma, meaning the Russian River specifically, tell us what you sense here. Maybe there's a little apple in wine always. You know, we love to quote.
That might be what maybe because it's next to my apple cider, and you planted it. But there does a nice fruity aroma for sure. but not not sweet at all, and very nicely dry.
So we purposely chose a wine because you love nature and terroir organic. So this is actually CCOF certified. This is one of our most popular organic Chardonnay from DeLoach.
It's very nice.
Very pure.
Very poor. Very, very pure.
So now, your other passion was the restaurant trade.
Well, yeah, that's
So
right.
tell us a little bit about that, because you've been so involved into developing quite a group of phenomenal restaurants.
Well, that's been some years ago. But yeah, part of what we did with Martin at Agassi was to partner with Michael Mina. And really it goes back to great people make a great business. We met, and really Andre met Michael Mina many, many years ago.
Yeah.
He was in a restaurant, Michael Mina's restaurant in San Francisco at the time, and Andre had just met him. And he had moved to his house in Belvedere in California, not too far away. And he was having a party at his house for New Year's. And he asked Michael Mina, he said, Michael, I love your food. This is fantastic. Do you know anybody who caters in Belvedere? I'm having this party, and I'd love to have your recommendation. Michael Mina came to his house and hosted the New Year's party for Andre and Steph. So that's how they met. And that appreciation for who Michael Mina was, what his vision was to really create different types of cuisine and different genres of cuisine, really inspired Andre, and then inspired all of us to get behind Michael, again, in a similar fashion with the charter schools. We said, listen, we have resources.
Yeah.
We can help you open your restaurants.
Great way to do it.
You have the intellectual property, you have all the expertise, so we're going to help you take a great idea and make it bigger. It wasn't our idea necessarily, but we could identify somebody who was passionate, who had a great product, and we could help him be more than what he was at that particular moment in time.
That's very cool. So how many restaurant totals?
Well, at the time I was involved, we had 19 across the United States. They've continued to open. So I don't want to quote where they are today. I wouldn't be surprised if it's closer to 40 or 50 across the United States,
Wow.
but I don't know exactly where they are today.
Congratulations! What a
Yeah.
story.
Well, and I've been away from it. It's a congratulations to Michael and his team. They do a great job.
Well, and now to this. So, personal question now. What inspires Gun on a regular basis? Where do you get your inspiration to do so many great things?
Yeah, my passion is around people. And really, if you look at what I've tried to do in my career, is to find great people and help them do more. Mm-hmm. Whether it was Andre, whether it was working with great charter school operators who had a passion for education, Michael Mina around restaurants. And then ultimately, when I looked at Martinelli's and I talked to John Martinelli, the fourth generation founder of the business, it's about those people that have passion and have a great idea and a great product, but need some help to take it to the next level. So as I look at Martinelli's and what I believe my role is, back to what we were talking, that old and new, is preserving the value of what's been created, mm-hmm. but then taking it forward and making it maybe something more than what it was. And that, to me, if there's a thread in my career, that's what has been exciting to me, is to take something that has a great value and make it more. And my passion is around solving those problems and working with great people while we do it, have fun while we're doing it,
yes,
and to take something and make it bigger.
Wow. The right man to have in your team and to lead your team. So I'm going to let you finish this because I know you enjoy Chardonnay. Now, how would you, as you just mentioned, your passion, how do you define passion at large? So now we're going to try another fantastic organic Pinot made by a great family. You lived in Japan.
I did.
So we selected specifically for you the Maboroshi family.
Oh, wow, okay.
Which means in Japanese, whimsical dreams. Whimsical, wild dreams. So the more you drink, you don't need anything else, the more you get wild.
I like that.
And it's a Pinot Noir,
yeah,
really between your family estates to DeLoach.
Right.
It's
right.
on the Russian River, 12 acres, and we made it in open-top fermenters.
Cheers.
Cheers. And it's one of the wine that is one of the most award-winning Pinot. Depth,
wow,
history.
Beautiful, beautiful aroma.
Thank you. I hope you friends as well are enjoying
Wow.
a Pinot. And
That
if
is
not,
fantastic.
Maboroshi, what do you think of that?
That's fantastic. Now, how long have you been making this particular
Since we bought DeLoach,
Okay.
we have around 75 phenomenal growers. In addition to the estate, like you do,
Right.
we source apples, we source grapes. And this has been an amazing family that came to us and said, we want to move into organic. So similar to this wine.
Sure.
And then we want to move into biodynamics. And they were
Right.
great because they were open-minded.
Right.
They were forward thinkers. And Japanese really understand the lunar calendar as well.
Right.
They not as deep as the Chinese, but sometimes they are very into it and they follow it. They got into it
Right.
and it made sense for them to do it since then it's been that level of wine.
That's incredible. There's biodynamics. Or how many of your different wineries take advantage of biodynamics?
Most of them have biodynamic vision
Right.
and execution in the vineyard. So that's the key for us.
Right.
It's a very big commitment, organic,
Right.
to solar panels, to bioreactors, to recycle water, to
Right.
recycling programs, to everything that is geared towards the environment. That's the key. And DeLoach is one of the leader in the Russian River for organic.
Absolutely. We've started to increase our organic business as well. So we're vertically integrating. So
Yes.
again, taking the past and bringing it to the current. We have not, up until 5 years ago, we only had contract growers. So we weren't growing any of our own apples. Now we grow about 600 acres
Oof.
of our own apples.
Big size.
Big size. And we've started to plant our own apple orchards, and we're focusing on organic. And we're trying to incorporate that concept of biodynamics. So we're not putting anything on the orchard if we can avoid it, and trying to create a habitat where natural predators for the insects that we don't want on the apple
Fantastic.
tree can thrive without putting chemicals onto the trees. So how successful have you been in incorporating biodynamics?
Well, very much so, and I think all of you, dear friends, whether you cultivate a tiny gardens or it's a rose garden, this is how my grandmother taught me, you could do it. And I think it's so important. I think for us, the success is derived by the purity, the essence of the quality of the wine. So yes, the vineyard looks a little wilder because we don't manicure it the same way.
Right.
But I really believe what it brings is the truth of what comes from the unseen. So we always say, as above, so below. And the connection of the cosmic rhythm to the telluric energy. And that's really what is being brought to this wine. I think this wine has a supernatural way of spirituality to it, of a vision that really works in symbiotic relationship with Mother Nature. And I think that's what it has done. And a lot of people ask us, why is this wine getting so high ranking?
Right.
And because I think there's vibration into it. There's that unique element that brings that transcendental view of what wine is in its simple definition. And I really feel that's what organic brings, but really what biodynamic brings, working with the biorhythm of Mother Nature.
Fascinating.
But
Congratulations.
tell us about your definition of passion,
Passion.
because you have a lot of passion in everything you do. What to enlighten all our friends,
Sure.
how do you see passion and what's your...
For me, passion is fundamental. Without passion, there is no meaning. So, for me, whether it's work, whether it's your family, whether it's what you eat, what you read, that element of passion is what, for me, is fundamental to motivate. That you would do it if you didn't get a paycheck.
Yes.
You would do it when nobody's looking. It's what you're committing your time, energy, and resources to, because to not do it, it's almost painful. Finding something in life.
That's a great advice.
To find something in life that you feel like if you don't do it, you're going to miss out. You're going to be in pain.
Yeah.
And it's, to me, it's something that I think is thrown around as a term without people really understand why I'm passionate about this. But I think there are men and women of many passions, but to me, I think to have true passion, it's to be focused on a few things.
Yes.
And there is a diminishing return for one's passion, and I think to focus those energies of passion onto what really makes you get up, go to work, whatever it might be. That to me is passion. It's It's hard to describe, but without it, there's no me.
Is it fair to say that you found yours?
I think it's a good question. I think as an underlying element of passion, I don't think it's ever satisfied.
That's
that
right.
You're always, for me, that there's always pushing for more.
Great.
That once you take the foot off the gas and you feel like you found it, that to me is some diagnosis. Maybe the passion isn't quite there. If you just are investing your time, energy, and pouring yourself into it, to me, there's some element of always trying to seek for more.
Yeah.
And so, it's an interesting question if I found mine. I think I'm always searching for more.
That's great, and I think it's a great question for everyone to ask themselves is what is that next level of passion that will take you to become even more passionate about what you still are searching for. And I think many of us search forever.
Right.
Without finding, and maybe there's another way we'll find something somewhere.
Right.
I look up, I look down.
Right.
I'm still searching.
Yeah. Well, it's so many people have said it, but I very, very much believe it, that life is not about the destination. Passion is not about the destination. It's about the journey.
Yes.
So you're always seeking, always trying to get a little bit better, learn a little bit more, drink a little bit more great wine. There's never an end destination to that. I think we're always seeking.
And it's in the attitude in the seat.
That's right.
So on that note, what is your dream? You've been Georgetown University, Stanford, great family, phenomenal business. What is the next dream for Gun? And there's so much more for all of you to discover about Gun. I'm keeping it quite superficial because it has to come back.
What is next for me? I think there's so much opportunity with Martinelli's.
Great.
To really build on this brand and really create a company that will survive for another 4 generations. And that to me is exciting, because I think we've just scratched the surface of what we can be. And it's an exciting opportunity for me to take the passion of the family and apply that and build on that to make the next evolution of this business.
That's right.
You look at a 150-year-old business and you think, well, they've been around forever. They've seen it all, and they're always going to be here. But the company has reinvented itself many, many times. You think of what Vista Winery has seen, what Martinelli's has seen. It came into existence after the Civil War. We saw World War I, World War II. We've seen...
And Prohibition.
Prohibition.
Did that really happen?
A big mistake.
Maybe we'll scratch that on the history books.
Right. But there is some legacy of conservatism that you impart to an older company. But it's quite the opposite, I believe, that to survive, to be 150 or 160 years old, you have to be reinventing yourself. You've got to find new horizons to conquer, or else you'll stagnate. So for me, that's what I'm passionate about, trying to find that next horizon. And
well said. Well, I thought you would tell me, get a tennis racket and beat Andre Agassi. That's my dream.
No, the dream is get a tennis racket and beat Jean-Charles, because I've heard you're quite a player. If I can do that, I'll be satisfied.
As long as we can drink wine and play tennis.
Cheers.
I thought maybe it was going to be getting a spoon, fork, and a casserole and beat Michael Mina in the kitchen too.
That will never happen.
So now, Gun, we've had an amazing time, but there's a question I think everybody always want to hear. Is what is your advice to everyone? What message would you want to send to all our friends all around the world with us today from you, Gun, and your view of the world? And it could be an advice, it could be anything you want.
Sure. Well, it comes... I wasn't ready for that question, but it's a great question.
When you look at his resume, he could be ready for anything at any time.
I don't know, in my mind right now, as I thought about the business and as in a conversation, it's that blending of old and new.
Yes.
This company was founded by Europeans coming to the United States. We're a multi-generational company trying to protect the values of generations before and apply them to the current times. To me, that extends beyond those particular examples to something that in the political climate, in the world climate right now, what is concerning for me is that we seem to be migrating into silos.
Yes.
That in the United States, across countries, this current issue that we're dealing with as a globe right now has made people inward. To me, the success of this country, the success of our global family is to be interconnected, to bring the old and the new together, to bring the old world to the new world, to bring east to west. It's not about building silos and walls. It's about bringing people together to seek their passions together. So that I hope we can emerge out of this very traumatic time, both domestically and around the world, to realize that what we value is each other. And we value, and it's not about our differences, and it's trite, but it's so true. We all seem to be focused on what makes us different now. Yeah. But it's what makes us the same. It makes us connected that's important. And we've got to find that, cherish that, and preserve that. If we don't, there's no good outcome.
It's a fabulous statement. What is to add but unity, as you represent so well, and frankly, the definition you just gave and the inspirational message is why people like me are in the United States. It's about bringing people together.
Absolutely.
And I think America, in spite of the news, will never lose it. So let's have a toast to America.
To unity.
To unity.